It's here. The trailer we've all been waiting for. Gladiator 2, releasing November 22nd, 2024. Ricky Flicks, we went over the premiere images that were released last week on our latest podcast. We are recording now on the day Gladiator 2 has released first trailer. I want to know, Ricky Flex, did this trailer live up to your wildest dreams and expectations?
In short, yes. It did. The stills that came out were otherworldly. They were everything I expected and more. It had every little thing that you wanted to see. And then this trailer, it gave you what you wanted to see, but not too much. It gave you some inkling of the story, but not too much of that either, right? And I think that overall, we're getting the same tone from Gladiator, which is a nice thing to think of. There are some hiccups in this trailer. It's not a perfect trailer, but for anticipation levels, especially in the back half of this year, where there's not a lot of movies past the summer that we're looking forward to, I think it gave us everything that we wanted and then some.
So this is still, as I stated last podcast, my most anticipated movie for the back half of 2024. Although I'm less inspired by my choice following the trailer, despite what I said after the first images came out. And I think that has to do with I started to question myself like, okay, this is yet another Ridley Scott trailer that includes like a modern song in an ancient era that feels very ill-fitting and that kind of grinded my gears a little bit. I'm not going against the grain. I think the use of Jay-Z and Kanye West, No Church in the Wild during this was a terrible decision. I had similar sentiments when the Napoleon trailer came out, and I was a fan of that trailer, except for the song. I think it's time that Ridley Scott puts his foot down for these goddamn trailers and does something about it. And there's another thing I started to question, and I think I'm also influenced by the social media response to this trailer. Like, how much is this story actually worth telling following what seemed like a perfect ending to Gladiator 1? I kind of got lost, I guess, in the exciting cast here and that we get to see them in a sequel in the Gladiator world. And I didn't question, like, maybe we don't need them. But overall, like, this is still my number one. I think it's doing some different things with the Gladiator world. It's showing characters that are reminiscent of other characters, but introducing like newly found characters that like weren't seen, I guess, or portrayed in the original film. Overall, I was a fan, Ricky Flex. And I was thinking as we go down, I guess I should throw it to you. What do you think about the song used in this trailer?
You're right. You're absolutely right. It did feel weird, but at the same time, you that the beat of the song, the aura around it, and the I guess anticipation and of this trailer of this movie, it did feel that a little bit. So I didn't like it, but I understand it. Would I have done it? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a huge deal.
It's a legacy sequel to a classic film. So I think of like Top Gun Maverick, and it uses a different, I guess, different. It's the same theme, but a different style. Like for it's the first trailer that premiered. I would have liked something with Hans Zimmer, like showing the tradition of this movie potentially. I know we get a lot of it with allusions to Maximus, Maximus's inspiration for Paul Mescal's character here, his Lucius. But I would have just like Hans Zimmer is one of the best parts of Gladiator. You know, you'd think you would honor that. I don't even care if it's Kanye West. I don't even care how polarizing of a figure it is. Just the idea of having a modern day like uh song in this trailer doesn't really make sense to me, Ricky Flex. It kind of grinds my gears. But we also talked about Paul Mescal. Last episode, we talked about the still that came out. We said how excited we are to see him kind of move on from just um Oscar nominated actor to a movie star because he is going to be so widely known after this movie. Who knows what the box office is going to be? Maybe we talk about that towards the end of this clip. But what do you think about Paul Mescal here, Ricky Flex? Obviously influenced by Maximus, his story being told. You get flashback sequences of him as a child directly following Gladiator, and then him basically becoming a prisoner of the Roman army, and him having vengeance set, having his eyes set upon vengeance. But what do you think about him in this trailer?
Well, personally, for Paul Mescal, the actor, looks the part. Looks the part. Acting looks the part. The only problem I have with this is that I don't get it. The character. It makes no sense to me if we're just going off of Gladiator because hey, how does he not know who he is or his parents or where he was born after being in high society, being the son? Yes, we already know who he is. The son of Connie Nielsen's character Lucilia, who was the elder sister to Commodus, the emperor in Gladiator. So it doesn't really make sense to me. Only reason I could think of is that maybe after the Commodus thing and they had some gripe, maybe, and I don't know, he saw that and he decided he didn't want the high society, leaves and then becomes a prisoner somehow. And then during this story, because we know that Lucilia had a relationship with Maximus, maybe he's the son here of those two. That is what I am seeing here after seeing this trailer, but I still don't get that from this character. I'm sure they're going to get into that, but that's probably the only thing that I didn't really like that I for sure did not like in this trailer was how we could just be like, "Oh, I don't know where I was born or who my parents are." After we saw in the original who he is.
So the kid is like 10 at least, right? During Gladiator. And by the way, did you notice in the flashback sequences they recast him?
No, I did not notice.
So that told me we're gonna have a couple flashback sequences that is going to explain how Paul Mescal's character, I guess, like flees like the Roman government, all right, and directly after the death of his uncle Commodus, and it might show how he is kind of kidnapped or like taken as prisoner by the Roman army, right, and maybe like that vengeance he has towards the Roman army, and he wants to take it out on Pedro Pascal's character. I was very confused when he said, I don't know my mother. I felt like he was saying that to protect his mother in some way because there's no way he doesn't remember who she is. And I think you would be like, that's taking the audience for stupid. And we're trying to erase Gladiator if we want to just say Paul Mescal doesn't know who his mom is. Like Lucilla, I'm wondering where she's been this entire time. It seems like she's front and center for a lot of these Gladiator battles. She's talking with her son, like in private corners. I feel like she still has high status. So I feel like it just needs to be explained more, right? But I did look on Google. I'm like, wait a sec, who is Lucius's mother? Just to make sure it was Connie Nielsen's character. I
It
totally see
is
what you're
though.
saying. It is. I had to double
Yeah.
check because I was like, that's a weird move to do in a trailer.
It just throws us off, especially when you're doing odes or flashbacks to Maximus versus Commodus and to her even and to the actual young Lucius. So it's just weird to throw that in there. And then when you're watching this trailer, you're like, that's what you're thinking about when you should be watching. Oh, this is epic. Look at this scale. Look at these battle sequences. Oh, we're gonna be looking forward to this Pedro Pascal Paul Mescal showdown. Like, you're thinking like, am I freaking crazy? Like, do I forget Gladiator?
Am I? Yeah, that's the same second guessing I had too. But I did like how Paul Mescal's character is kind of doing. He's inspired by Maximus, and then he does the twirl of the sword that's reminiscent of Maximus. He is grabbing the sand just like Maximus did, getting a sense like he's almost in the batter's box, in the Coliseum, ready to duke it out. I just think it's a direct inspiration. Paul Mescal also channeling a different type of voice. I feel like he's always soft, fragile, like I said in the previous episode of our podcast. But it seems like here, like he is a manliest of men with Lucius, and I'm just excited for him to be on, just be almost like a classic good guy in a movie. A classic prototype in an action movie that a lot of people are going to see. I'm looking forward to it. But any other thoughts on Mescal before we move on to a couple other characters?
No, yeah, like it just seems like he's diversifying the portfolio, as we say here. Like he's channeling a different type of character, which I think he needs. As someone as a young actor, he's going to be in different roles, trying to say, "I am the guy. I am the guy." Timmy, with Austin Butler and everyone else. He's going to have to do something different, and this is something different on a huge scale. So I'm with you. He looks the part. He looks like he's acting the part, and for me, it's all going to be on the script and this character and does it make sense? Because right now that's the only part of the trailer where I'm really like not happy with.
He is like such a classical form of a hero, and I feel like there's so many other interesting characters here, and I was especially fascinated by both Denzel Washington's character and Pedro Pascal. Denzel Washington, to start with him, he is like that Proximo character, the sponsor of Lucius during this movie. It appears so. And he also seems like he has a commonality with him, a connection with him, trying to gain vengeance on the Roman emperors, the government, the army. It seems like Denzel's character was formerly a slave, as he hints at in this trailer, and he's kind of using Paul Mescal, who's kind of questioning who he doesn't really know who Denzel is. He just knows he can get him to the Coliseum. He can get him to that one-on-one that he greatly desires with the Roman general played by Pedro Pascal. It just seems like this guy is kind of he has a large view, like we can see what he's doing, but we're looking for more of the motivation, more detail, and what his ultimate goal is. But I found him sort of like we predicted, like a little finger operating in the shadows, seems sipping on wine. I also thought it was hilarious he was using his regular voice. Like Paul Mescal is like using this like very slow type of tone, and almost very much like a Maximus. And then you have like the comedic type of like voices from a Fred Hetchinger and from a Joseph Quinn, and Denzel's just being Denzel. Like it's as if it's like 2001 Training Day. But I just found his character to be the most intriguing because he's not fighting, but he has large stakes in what's happening.
His character is like Proximo, as in he's kind of like he says in the trailer, you will be my instrument, rage is your gift, and I'm going to use
line.
that. He had all the lines in this trailer, dude. He had all the lines. He was a true poet out there. It's like he was going back to like Tragedy of Macbeth and his theater background, just being put to work here. Yeah, so for him, it's like he's like the Proximo there, but he's also like he's already made it. Like Proximo and Gladiator, he's trying to make it with Maximus a little bit, right? He's not on at the Coliseum yet. Denzel's kind of made it. You can see by the like he has the great garb on. He's meeting with senators. He's literally leading a Senate meeting, and everyone's cheering with him. So he's kind of like a mix between Proximo and his actions and his relationship with Paul Mescal's Lucius, and also like a Gracchus, or however you pronounce it, the senator in Gladiator as well, that kind of is behind the scenes working for Maximus as well. He's kind of like a mix of the two. And we don't get a for sure answer who he is, but I think that's what we're going to see here. And I think, again, going back to the lines, he has all the best lines in this. The line delivery is impeccable. You are right. It's like it's prime Denzel all over again. I'm just going to be waiting for that one scene where he just goes absolute liftoff and just goes, yep, that's Denzel, potential Oscar supporting actor nomination here.
It's definitely going to be like that scene where he's drinking wine in the middle of the room of all the elites, and he says like King Kong ain't got shit on me, like type of thing. That's going to happen in this movie. But what I like about his character is like you kind of question his morality. He's helping out and sponsoring Paul Mescal's Lucius, but like by the end of this movie, do I expect him to be like a quote unquote good character? I don't at all. And that
he's using him,
and that's kind of in contrast to like a Pedro Pascal. And Pedro Pascal is a general of the Roman army, and he is someone that is a target of Lucius, Paul Mescal's character. But he is someone that questions the dual-headed emperors of Rome right now with Joseph Quinn and Hetchinger. And he's not bought in. He says, like, we need mouths to feed. And then the two emperors say, there's another fight. There's another war to fight. He's like, we'll feed them war. These guys aren't concerned with the people. That was very reminiscent of the government in corruption during the time of the first Gladiator movie. It seems like almost there is a prisoner that Pedro Pascal is in this type of movie, and he's trying to break away from it. He doesn't want to be controlled by these emperors, and he might have to fight his way through this Gladiator type of tournament, or have to like fight a Paul Mescal in order to gain that freedom. I can totally see that happening, but I kind of find that also false sense of morality where he's marked as a bad guy sort of in this movie, but you could totally see him being kind of ambiguous by the end of it.
I completely agree. I got the same vibes where you get the line with Denzel is like asking Paul Mescal's like, what do you want? And he goes like, I want the Roman army. And he's like, I can't give you that. But then he goes like, the general will do. And then it's Pedro Pascal's character. And, he's looking fly, he's looking sick. But the real villains are like the people that are laughing crazy, like Joseph Quinn.
Yeah,
the emperors, Fred Hetchinger, Joseph Quinn. And hey, Denzel has that sick laugh a little bit too. Not to the same extent. Sign of a bad guy. So for me, it's like, oh, instead of like a epic showdown of Commodus versus Maximus, this revenge story that you're rooting for this clearly one side, it's more going to be like, oh, like both of them are fighting for something, freedom, their beliefs, whatever it is. And you're really rooting for Paul Mescal, but you understand the other side. You didn't understand Commodus' side, and that's what you were talking, similar to what you were saying. So I totally see that in this. And also, Pedro Pascal, not a true villain in most of his parts. Hasn't really played that, so I could totally see him not being like a true villain in this either.
The secondary characters just feel so important in this. It's not just the Commodus and the Maximus. It's not the hero villain. There's other people, other characters in play, and probably makes the script a little bit more complex. And I think we have to talk about the emperors now. And we have Joseph Quinn as Emperor Geta, might be Geta. I think it's Geta, and then Fred Hetchinger as Emperor Caracalla, and they are dual emperors. And Ricky Flicks, these guys are playing it way over the top, and these guys, they know what they signed up for. And after watching this, like Joseph Quinn, I have an idea what you're gonna say, but Joseph Quinn, this is so different from what we saw with The Quiet Place Part 1. This is him really putting himself out there, probably the most outlandish performance we got in this trailer, alongside Fred Hetchinger. Fred Hetchinger, we didn't get a still of, but Fred Hetchinger, this was supposed to be Barry Keoghan. And honestly, like Fred Hetchinger is good. Imagine if Barry Keoghan was in this role. Holy shit. Like this would be this is already my most anticipated movie of the year. But if you have Barry Keoghan along with the outlandish Joseph Quinn, this is a perfect Barry Keoghan role following Saltburn. God damn, we missed out.
And also following him getting his Joker laugh, right?
Yeah. Hetchinger, people are going to be like, oh, Hetchinger should be the Joker of the DCU. Guarantee people are going to say that after this movie.
But this is where it's going to get divisive, right? The over-the-topness, like you mentioned. And you think back to Ridley Scott movies, particularly House of Gucci, a lot of over-the-top there. Napoleon, there's some over-the-top performances, or at least parts there. This is where, the laugh, the when he's like, the gods have spoken, but like in that weird ass line delivery could get annoying for people, too over the top, too outlandish, and could turn people off. If it was like a Barry Keoghan doing it, maybe you buy some remorse there, like, oh, like we understand it, right? But here it's like Joseph Quinn doing some completely different. Fred Hetchinger, hasn't been a lead in anything, or like second lead really. The thing I know him for most recently is from the Pale Blue Eye, which again, not a major role there. So I don't know. This is another part of the story where I'm nervous about, and it's not necessarily I hated it in this trailer like I did about like the character arc but it's also just something I'm nervous about.
I kind of understand the castings now with like the young like actors, inexperienced rulers, and then you have the morally ambiguous characters like Pedro Pascal and Denzel. You don't need a powerhouse performance necessarily as like the quote unquote Commodus of the movie, right? There's a lot of other things happening here. It's a little bit more. There's a little bit more. There's a lot more wheels turning, I would say. There's a lot more different levers being pulled, I think, with this type of script. That could be good, that could be bad, but it is a little bit different from the first movie.
But like I think the Commodus role is more going to be the Denzel role. That's going to take up more of the screen time. These two guys are more like the senator role that I mentioned earlier, who's like a minor supporting character.
There was not a role like this in the original Gladiator. Like Denzel, like you're right when you're talking about Joaquin was a lot more silent with the public. He would have angry outbursts in private, and those one-on-ones, you could feel his anger. Here, these guys are just doing whatever they want, and they are fat and rich and corrupt with power. Joaquin kind of doesn't really show it to the public, and these guys are just unflinchingly willing to do so.
Yeah, I guess I'm more speaking to I totally agree with you.
Didn't exist. Like this character didn't exist.
Right.
It was Proximo.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to fill in screen time, like from comparing the first one to this one, and like they're going to be major characters or supporting characters, but not the supporting character, right? And they're obviously not the protagonist. But I just don't see these guys as being the main antagonists.
Yeah, I think they are like when you look at it on paper, they are, And it's what the quote unquote twist is going to be. And this is kind of my beef with the movie. Is this all too predictable? Is this all, even though we have like a compelling Denzel type of character and a compelling Pedro Pascal character, is it obvious there's going to be like a flip flop of sorts where Pedro Pascal is going to be a hero and you're going to have Denzel being an underlying villain? To me, it was just like, it's really easy to tell off the bat, and I think that's kind of one of the flaws of the trailer if this is indeed the case.
Agreed.
Okay. What else, Ricky Flex? Also, I just want to talk about action sequences. Coliseum bringing in some water, right? It looks like we're going to get some battle sequences with water in the Coliseum, and we replace tigers with rhinos. Maybe a sign of the times, right? We're a more expansive world. We're traveling more. I don't know if I saw really much else. A lot of battle sequences reminiscent of the first Gladiator. Overall, looked pretty cool. Any other takeaways you want to mention before we head on out of here?
I agree with you. We get a lot of the similar resemblance of the first one / Maximus. We get the grabbing the dirt, like you mentioned, a bow and arrow at the Emperor, similar to before Maximus gets to the Colosseum, throws an arrow. We get the Maximus ring, Maximus armor. All right, we get the thumbs down from Joseph Quinn.
Oh, good call.
A lot of odes or just resemblance of the first one here, but also a little bit different and adding a little bit more, or a lot of something of a different flavor. Like you mentioned, the water in the Colosseum, a rhino. The rhino scene, CGI looked iffy on the Paul Mescal jump / hit. Hopefully the CGI in this movie is good. We saw Napoleon, that the Battle of Auschwitz, that was all time. Hopefully, still have faith in Ridley Scott in that regard. But again, that was another thing I was like, it's iffy. But again, not on a big screen. I'm not going to hold it in too much disregard.
I think after watching this trailer, I think we should end this conversation by giving a thermometer predictor. And this is where we predict the Rotten Tomatoes scores for upcoming films. It might be cringy for some because it's Rotten Tomatoes, but it's something fun that we do. And we like to call upon it when we review the film. So, Ricky Flex, what do you think Gladiator 2 will clock in on the thermometer?
All right. So before I do that, Mr. Thermometer predictor himself, or thermometer guesser himself, what is Ridley Scott's highest rated movie on Rotten Tomatoes?
Okay, let's talk through it a little bit. I would say Thelma and Louise is definitely up there. I would also say Alien is definitely up there. Along with Alien, Gladiator's probably up there. I think Gladiator would be higher on like an audience rating than it would on a critics rating. I would say, so as a final answer, I would go with, give me Thelma and Louise. Yeah.
At what percent?
91.
Thelma and Louise is his fourth highest at 86.
Wow.
His highest is Alien at 93%.
Okay. So it wasn't too far off. I'm in the ballpark, buddy. I'm in the ballpark.
You're in the ballpark. Aliens 1, The Martians 2 at 91. Blade Runner is at 3 at 89%.
Would have been a good one. I would have, like, The Martian I would have been able to get.
Number 5 is The Last Duel. Shout out, 85%. 6 is American Gangster at 81%. And then at 7, Gladiator, 80%. So
what's the audience score? Do you have the audience score for Gladiator?
I could get it. Gladiator. I am Gladiator. 87%.
Okay.
So yeah, that makes sense though.
That's not a high enough. For Gladiator, audience is at an 87. That should be at a 97.
Yeah, it's a little shocking. I'm gonna enjoy this a lot more than The Last Duel. I am.
Oh, dude, come on.
I just don't think critics will put it that high. I'm just gonna go just below that and in between American Gangster, 84%.
We're in the same ballpark. I'm putting it at an 85%, Ricky Flex. This is a solid 85 from the get-go. We'll see, though, because Ridley Scott's kind of had a checkered past in recent history. He is capable of making some great movies, like we just talked about The Martian, and within the last 10 years and Last Duel, even though the box office didn't look great. But then again, like House of Gucci, kind of polarizing. We'll see if Gladiator can prove that it's worth being made. I think that's a huge question mark. Like, do we need to hear about Lucius? If so, like, give us something worthwhile.
Side note. So I pulled up the thermometer predictor. So the last movie we did that has come out for the thermometer predictor is Hitman. Do you remember on April 18th what you predicted Hitman to be?
No.
You said 81. I gave it a 92. Ended up being a 95. A rare victory for Ricky Flicks with a thermometer predictor.
Ricky, I'm not going to hate on that. Congratulations. That's a huge W. Like I said, Ricky Flicks, I am more of you give me a movie and then I get the Rotten Tomatoes score. It's a little bit different,
Sure.
you know? You might be better at actually predicting the scores. We have to go – I think we have to log that a little bit better. I know you have been doing it, you know, but we have to project it on the podcast more. All right. That does it for our reactions to Gladiator 2.